The first time I caught Karen measuring my lawn, I thought I was hallucinating. It was 6:52 a.m., just as the sunrise burned off the morning mist, and there she was, crouched on my front yard in her floral robe and orthopedic slippers, holding a yellow tape measure like a sheriff inspecting a crime scene. She was so focused she didn't notice me standing at the window, coffee in hand, mouth open in disbelief. It was only after she scribbled something onto her clipboard and marched off that I realized this was not her first rodeo, and it definitely wouldn't be her last. My name's Alan Carter, and I live in the Oak Ridge Hills subdivision, a place that looks like it was copied and pasted out of a real estate brochure. Neatly trimmed hedges, identical mailboxes, beige everything. It was quiet, uneventful, and boring. Until Karen moved into the HOA board president's house directly across from mine. Karen Simmons was a retired fourth-grade teacher with a thirst for control and a self-declared doctorate in neighborhood order. In her eyes, the HOA bylaws were the 10 Commandments, and she was Moses, carrying the clipboard instead of stone tablets. At first, it was little things, notes taped to my door. "Your recycling bin is visible from the street. Please correct this violation." Or, "Please adjust your porch lights. They exceed approved brightness levels." But I could tolerate that. Annoying, sure, but manageable. Then came the incident with the grass. Apparently, according to the Oak Ridge Hills HOA, grass height must be no less than 1.25 inches and no more than 2.5 inches. I'd never measured it, and my landscaper certainly didn't carry a ruler, but somehow Karen did, multiple times. I installed a Ring camera just to confirm my suspicion. Within 3 days, I caught her on video, crouching, measuring, jotting notes, and then retreating like a meddling squirrel. Enough was enough. When the HOA sent me a formal notice of violation, stating that my grass exceeded the maximum permissible height by 0.6 inches, and that I had 7 days to resolve it or face a fine, I knew this was not about the lawn. This was a power play. I appealed the violation at the next HOA meeting. Karen, presiding at the head of the table like some kind of dictator, barely let me speak before smugly denying my appeal. "Compliance is not optional," she said with a smirk. "If you can't follow the rules, perhaps this isn't the right community for you." That's when I decided I wouldn't just fight back, I'd fight smart. I started with research. In my city, unauthorized entry onto someone's property without express permission is considered criminal trespassing, even if it's by a nosy neighbor in fuzzy slippers. I consulted a local attorney who confirmed I was within my rights to take action, especially since I had video evidence. But I didn't want to go nuclear just yet. No, I wanted Karen to feel the consequences in real time. That's when the idea of the motion-activated sprinkler system came to me. I ordered the top-of-the-line model online. These weren't your average lawn sprinklers. These bad boys were equipped with infrared sensors, 360-degree coverage, customizable pressure settings, and most importantly, a night mode. I installed 4 of them, 2 in the front, 2 in the side, angled specifically to detect movement along the perimeter of my lawn. I even synced them with my phone to receive notifications when they were triggered. It was an elegant solution. 3 nights later, at exactly 6:50 a.m., I got the notification. I pulled up the live camera feed, and lo and behold, Karen. She tiptoed onto my lawn like a cartoon burglar, tape measure in hand. As she leaned forward to examine a blade of grass near the walkway, the sprinklers hissed to life. She shrieked. Drenched in seconds, she dropped her clipboard and stumbled backward, slipping in the wet grass and landing flat on her butt. She scrambled to her feet and darted across the street, flailing like a soaked cat. I nearly spilled my coffee from laughing so hard. The footage was glorious. It became my personal Mona Lisa. But that wasn't the end. The next day, she filed a formal complaint with the HOA, claiming I had weaponized my landscaping. I was summoned to another hearing. This time, I came prepared. With the footage, the city's trespassing ordinance, and my lawyer's letter explaining in legal detail how any future entry onto my property by Ms. Simmons would result in criminal charges. The HOA board members, mostly too terrified of Karen to ever challenge her, sat stunned as I played the footage. I have been repeatedly trespassing onto my property under the guise of inspection, I said calmly. If she wants to continue that, I'll have no choice but to file a police report. Karen turned red, flustered, and visibly seething. She opened her mouth to argue, but the board members had already begun murmuring among themselves. "I think Mr. Carter makes a fair point," one of them muttered. The motion to dismiss her complaint against me passed 3-1. Karen stormed out of the room. That was when the real war began. She started watching me like a hawk. Every trash day, every landscaping session, every grocery delivery, she was out there, binoculars in hand, jotting things down like a paranoid journalist. So I kept upping the game. First, I adjusted the sprinkler's motion sensitivity to pick up on smaller movements, like a clipboard being raised. Then I added solar-powered spotlights to highlight trespassers at night for maximum drama. I even posted signs on my lawn. "Smile, you're on camera. Trespassers will get wet." She tried to rally the HOA against me, pushing for new rules that limited hostile deterrent landscaping equipment, but by then her credibility had taken a hit, especially after one of the board members, her own neighbor, caught her snooping near his side yard trying to measure a shrub. Then came the icing on the cake. I submitted a formal complaint of my own, complete with timestamps, security footage, and my lawyer's endorsement accusing Karen of repeated trespassing, harassment, and abuse of HOA authority. The HOA had no choice but to open an investigation. What they uncovered wasn't just limited to my property. It turns out Karen had a pattern, targeting certain homeowners with her tape measure, clipboard, and threats, but conveniently ignoring her friends' violations. The board quietly voted to suspend her authority as president pending a full review. She was livid. And that, dear reader, is where things truly began to unravel for her. But we're not done yet. Because Karen, she wasn't going down without a splash. The day Karen's HOA authority was suspended felt like Independence Day. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in months gave me nods. Some even smiled like they were finally free from some unspoken tyranny. But unlike fireworks and flags, this celebration came with a bitter aftertaste. Because Karen wasn't done. She simply went rogue. 2 mornings later, at exactly 6:51 a.m., because, of course, she was nothing if not consistent, I got a motion alert. I opened the app and saw her creeping up my driveway with a flashlight in one hand and a ruler in the other, dressed like she'd just left a spy movie casting call. She was no longer president, no longer backed by bylaws, but there she was, still determined to find something, anything to punish me with. The sprinklers fired again. She screamed, again, slipped, again. But this time, when she turned to run, she noticed a new addition, a steel pole near my garden bed with a bright red light blinking. A second camera. She froze, water streaming down her face, staring at it like it had personally insulted her. Then she flipped me off and bolted. I expected her to file some kind of complaint or at least send me another passive-aggressive letter. But no, she went quiet. And when Karen gets quiet, that's when you really have to worry. For the next week, I didn't see her once. No clipboard, no binoculars, no lawn inspections. It was like she vanished into her beige cave. Until one afternoon, a sheriff's cruiser pulled into my driveway. Karen had filed a false police report, claiming that my sprinklers had assaulted her with force strong enough to cause injury, and that I had deliberately installed surveillance to harass her. She even claimed emotional trauma. I gave the officer a flash drive with the footage, every incident, every timestamp, Every moment Karen walked, measured, and got soaked of her own volition. The officer chuckled halfway through the second clip. "You sure you didn't add the sound effects?" he asked. "Nope, that's all real, even the scream." He thanked me, apologized for the inconvenience, and told me off the record that this wasn't the first time someone in the neighborhood had issues with the clipboard lady. I thought that would finally end it, but Karen, she went nuclear. It started with her new sidekick, her niece, Tiffany, a woman in her early 30s who had that same self-righteous glint in her eye. Karen couldn't legally trespass anymore, so she sent Tiffany. But Tiffany was dumber than Karen. She triggered the sprinklers before even setting foot on the grass. She screamed too, more dramatically than her aunt, and ran straight into one of the garden poles, smashing her phone and tripping into a bush. She threatened to sue. I laughed. Then I sent her a signed waiver that I now had on hand for exactly such incidents. Anyone who entered my property without permission did so at their own risk. My lawyer had drawn it up after the third sprinkler incident. Karen escalated. She started a campaign, printed flyers accusing me of weaponizing his property, posted on the Nextdoor app with fake usernames calling me a neighborhood threat, and even photoshopped an image of me holding a hose menacingly. I held a block party, invited everyone except her. Grilled burgers, served lemonade, played lawn games on the very grass she had once tried to measure into submission. Neighbors came. They laughed, they talked. Many shared stories of their own Karen encounters. One man, Dave, said she once fined him for having unapproved festive lighting during Halloween. Another woman, Rebecca, said Karen tried to issue a violation for having too many wind chimes. We formed a committee. An unofficial one. Just neighbors, chatting, sharing notes, talking about voting rules and board seats. You see where this is going. When the official HOA re-election came around, we were ready. We voted her out, not just out of the presidency, but off the board entirely. The final vote tally was read at the clubhouse, and when her name was announced as losing by a landslide, the room erupted in polite applause. Even her so-called supporters didn't speak up. One woman actually looked relieved. Karen stood up, red-faced, shaking. "You're all sheep, letting this man turn our neighborhood into a joke," she yelled at me like I'd committed arson. Someone in the back yelled, "Better wet than micromanaged." She stormed out. I wish I could say that was the end of her, but petty doesn't just disappear. It evolves. 2 weeks later, Karen's house went up for sale. Not officially, but the "For Sale by Owner" sign popped up one morning like a white flag. She didn't even mow the lawn before putting it up. It grew, wildly, ironically, past 2.5 inches. I took a photo and mailed it anonymously with the caption, "Violation number 47, unkempt lawn." She left by the end of the month. The day her U-Haul rolled out of Oak Ridge Hills, I stood on my porch and raised my coffee mug toward the street. She didn't look back, but I saw the new driver's seat occupied. Not her, but Tiffany. Apparently, the family tradition of bitterness and poor judgment continued. After she left, things shifted. The HOA board relaxed. People got creative with their yards again, colorful flowers, unique statues, even quirky gnomes. No more clipboard checks, no more 6 a.m. patrols. The grass on my lawn still grows freely. Sometimes it gets up to 2.75 inches. No one says a word. The sprinklers? Still there, still active, just in case. And every now and then, when I sip coffee in the morning, I glance at the camera feed, not expecting anything, but hoping, just a little, to see Karen sneaking back for one last measurement. Because revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the soft hiss of a sprinkler and the sound of petty soaking itself into the earth.